Hello, beautiful beings of light. Rick Ely, the breath of Eli. And I'm just going to let a couple people tune in. Make sure I'm going to share this actually to a couple groups, tag some friends, let you all know I'm here. And we'll go ahead. I know it's 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Hope you all are having a great day. I got a special treat for you today. I'm here with Mr. Howard Falco, and I'll introduce you to him here in a second as soon as I finish tagging everybody. Hey, Cassie. Aloha, Diana. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Yeah, it's a special day. Hey, Jonathan. Good to see you guys. So I'm here with Howard Falco, Scottsdale, Arizona.
Here we are, live.
Live, and this book, of course, Howard's the author, and we were just getting acquainted before going live. This had a deep impact on me, and thanks for tuning in, guys. We're gonna dive deep. Howard agreed to dive deep with me today, and
I warned him I was gonna dive deep. So all good.
Good deal. So Thanks for tuning in, and we're just going to go ahead and dive in on a dialogue and share this with you because I believe what he's got to say is transformational and is really healing for so many. So
Thank you. That's really nice, and I'm honored to do this, and it's I'm honored to meet you. So it's great. It's great to do this. It's my pleasure.
So I actually did some of this work in your book, but I wrote some questions out before.
Okay.
And so the first thing I wanted to ask you, and please go ahead and introduce yourself so people know who you are.
Yeah, sure. I'm a spiritual teacher, a peak performance coach. I work with individuals with all sorts of life issues, from relationships, business, personal, people on a spiritual path of growth. And I also work with professional and college athletes at the highest level. And it all comes from a work of self-empowerment and self-awareness. Do you want me to give some background on how this all came to be?
Sure.
All right. The short story, I'll give you the short story and then I'll let Rick expand or expound on whatever he wants to in it, is that I've always been on an existential search to find out more of the meaning of life, purpose, why we're here, some of the big questions of life. Ever since I was a young kid, the first time I really got to see the night sky, the moonless night sky, and got to see all the stars in the sky, and it really sparked something deep within my soul to one day understand what that's all about and what our relationship to it. Went through a normal life, my parents got divorced when I was 13, put myself through school out in Arizona, fell in love and got married, had 2 kids, got a job in the finance business after graduation, check. But yet I was still on this deep existential search. And the short story is, in the middle of my 30s, I had a deep crisis of where I just had to know. I had to know more about life. I had to know more about the understanding. And it was a deep, powerful yearning that produced 2 massive spontaneous shifts in consciousness over a 6-month period. And what I mean by that is simply that my understanding about the nature of life and existence and our place in it went from maybe something this big to something I can't even put my arms around. And they were very profound moments. The second one, which I call the grand one, took me almost a year to get my arms around it. And after that, I decided to leave my business and dedicate my life to serving and honoring this wisdom and this insight. And that's when I wrote the book I Am. And having not written since college except business letters, but the manuscript found its way to a great agent and publisher, and it was published about 7 years ago. And then I wrote a second book called Time in a Bottle, Mastering the Experience of Life. And I've been out speaking and teaching around the country and parts of the world about this deep wisdom and insight and understanding about the truth of who we really are, and helping people get clarity on that so they can see more possibility in their life. And again, it's not just people on a spiritual quest, but it's also athletes, it's teens, it's anybody who has questions about life or who is in a state of suffering in any way. So that's the short story. So there's a lot more to that, but that's a short story.
There is, but the book is very telling as well. So you can pick up the book and check the book out for yourself. I dove in. I read your book twice actually, and I finished reading the book again while I was on a cruise in Mexico, and I did the homework in the back of it. And what that led for me was true clarity for the vision that I held for myself. It really gave me a deeper understanding of what it was I wanted to create for myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm so honored to be here. Thank you. Like I said,
it's my pleasure, and it's an honor to talk to you.
So in looking at like the introduction in your book, you say, can you take us back to that first time in your life where you were truly out of answers? So this is when you asked yourself, what's next? What do you have to do to be happy? And how do you achieve lasting peace and fulfillment?
Wow, that's verbatim, exactly. So my whole life I thought I had the answers. I could figure it out. I knew if I just had this in my life, or this material thing, or I made this amount of money, or I went and visited this place, then I would feel at peace and I'd feel happiness. But it was only a temporary, lasting feeling. It was fleeting. And I was searching for something grander, some greater understanding of purpose and meaning. And so that's what I mean by I was out of answers. Plus, I was also looking at some big things in the world. There's over 2 billion people without clean running water or shelter every single night. And, children get sick, and there's disease, and there's war, and there's a lot of tough things that we're trying to reconcile in this world. So they were big questions. And I was at a point in my business life where I was working so hard to achieve this American dream and achieve all this money and accumulation, and it wasn't making me any happier. The closer I got to it, almost I got more nervous because it wasn't doing it. And so that's when I really threw my hands up and submitted. And what I mean by submitted is I basically said, I don't know. I'm open to giving up all the beliefs that I hold about life and myself in order to know. And I'm willing to give up just about everything, including my life, to know. I mean, that's how badly I wanted to know. And the timing was right, and life started to, at first it started to drip the answers in. And what I mean by that is that it's not some moment where this light shines down and it's just there. It's actually happening every moment in your life too. So 2 weeks later, I was in a financial seminar where the instructor was talking about how you create the trade and the experience of the trade, how much you invest, how long you're in it, what the vehicle is, when you get in, when you get out, the profit, the loss. You're creating the experience. And it hit me, not in a financial sense, but in a life sense, that we're all creating the same thing through our choices, actions, and reactions in every single moment. And so for the first time in my life, I realized that the power to determine my experience was not about something out there, it was in here. So that was the first thing that blew me away. And then the second thing was, I'd ask these amazing questions, and here 2 weeks later, life is answering me, and I saw that connection. I didn't see it as a random event that I was at this financial seminar. I saw it directly connected to the question. And then I started to see that everything in our life is the same way. So this Facebook Live coming to you is not random. It's because whoever's watching has been asking questions. Now how far you take it, get into it, and further develop is up to you. But for this moment, everybody's being served, which is really what's so magical and divine about life. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
So what is truth?
The eternal question.
What is truth?
Oh boy. Here we go. All right, I'm going to answer this 2 ways from my perspective. Of course, this is my perspective on it. There's only one objective truth about life. And that simply is, infinity is. Now, That's the answer to this big math problem. But the wisdom is in how you come to understand that in your regular everyday life. Like people who do math, if you could give them the answers all day long, but they're not getting the wisdom. They have to know how they got to the answer. So I can give you the big truth, which is infinity is. Now, everything else is a subjective experience, or an individual subjective experience like my truth, or our truth. We share the same truth on certain things, so there's a little bit of a collective truth of ours, or there's a family truth, or there's a community truth, or there's a religion's congregation's truth, or there's a country's truth, or there's even some global truths. But those are all subjective based on the collection of individuals looking to experience that collectively, or if it's individual. But it's all subjective within that. The only objective is infinity is. All possibility is.
Okay, so infinity is the big answer.
Right.
All right, so then what is time?
Wow. Whew. Rick. All right. Time. No, it's awesome. I mean, the question is so perfect because it was on the tip of my tongue to go further, but I didn't want to, and then you asked that. So.
This is the edge, bro.
Yeah. No, this is the edge. Exactly.
We're going to the
All
edge.
right. This is crazy. This is awesome. Time is the way that infinity gets validated.
Time is the way infinity gets validated.
What makes all things possible is time. Without time, everything is, and then there's oneness. But with oneness, there's no contrast. It's like if you saw the movie The Matrix, when he takes him into the white room, and there's nothing in it, no door, no window, and you can't tell what's up or down, sideways, or because it's just, there's no contrast yet. So time allows everything to unfold, allows infinity to unfold for each of us individually and collectively to experience in order to validate the truth that infinity is. Now again, we're getting into some very verbose and heavy thought on, and deeper existential thought on this, but the important thing to understand is that you're in control of how time unfolds for yourself in your own creative expression. And it's based on your willingness to accept awareness or truth in relation to what you say you want. So I always like to take it down to life's level and not get too esoteric about it, because I mean, that's fun to do that, but I really like the practical. I like, okay, so my relationship, how do I make my relationship better? Well, there are things that have to be recognized from both people's ends of what makes a better relationship, and part of that responsibility lies in you to accept some truths of what is, and then what actions you want to take to demonstrate who you want to be in relationship to that. So therefore, you're determining time in the pace of how that relationship gets better, or how your situation gets better, based on what you're willing to accept or not accept about the present situation. Does that make sense?
Well, it sounds to me like there is only the present.
Yes. But in relation to time...
In relation to time.
Right. Of your creativity, and I was just using a relationship as an example. You could take business, you could take sports, you could take personal health, you could take anything. So I guess getting back to your answer, time is a necessary component of reality because it allows everything to unfold so that infinity can be validated, so that energy can become matter in an infinite number of expressions.
Well, in your book, you talk about you are matter and you are energy.
Right.
But without time, we wouldn't experience that.
That's correct, because everything would happen at once if you don't have, and that's in the second book, this is where I really dive into, is that whole idea that without time, everything would happen at once. There would be no way to experience it and no one to experience it, because there would be no separation in anything else. So time is what allows all the possibilities to unfold. It's what evolution is.
Okay, so I'm going to dive in a little deeper on this because there's so many people out there that are like, look, I've experienced past lives, I've seen my future. How do you relate to that? How do you make sense of that?
Well, I think that's up to each individual. I've personally never had an experience with past lives or future lives because I believe that the only moment that exists is now.
Right.
Not that there wasn't previous incarnations or there won't be future ones, but when I go there, it takes me out of this moment.
Okay.
So if it's for positive reasons, and you want to explore that, or people are interested in that subject and they want to do past life regression, which I don't know much about, that's fine. Or they want to do future projections, that's fine. It's a way, it's just something to experience. But in my world, for myself, now is the most important moment. And how I see myself in this moment, the amount of love, appreciation, respect, is what I know makes the most powerful me as it relates to what I'm intending to create. And since me being in control of personal expression and being excited about creating certain intents and ideas or experiencing life, it makes me want to be more in the present moment so I can harness it for that greatest good as it relates to my intent. So I don't have an answer for you on that because it's personal. If people have experienced past or future lives, that's awesome and that's really cool, and, and I'm sure it's fun for them to explore that. It's just not been...
You've never had that experience?
No.
Okay. But this brings me to a really good question, kind of ties into it. And how much control does one really have over himself?
Well, as it relates to the way that you experience your... I believe state of mind is the most important thing to life. So let me say that first. State of mind is the most important thing because that determines the energy that you're putting out to yourself and to the world. So,
like an emotional state of mind, a state of mind as it in...
State meaning harmonious or disharmonious.
Okay.
Joy or suffering.
Okay.
Fulfilled or unfulfilled.
Okay.
And that I believe we have 100% control over by the way that we decide we're going to interpret and respond to our circumstance. Now, the way we decide we're going to interpret and respond to our circumstance depends on our level of understanding beneath that tells us, that puts us in line with what's happening. In other words, do we trust a universe that birthed us into existence, that there's meaning in some of the most unfortunate events that we've ever experienced? And I say that with all due respect to anyone who's gone through anything extremely tragic. But I have learned in dealing with thousands of people who have gone through so many different things in their life that everything you experience, there is a meaning in it as it relates to the unfoldment of your journey, which is eternal, by the way.
I think it's really helpful to be looking actually into the camera, and I can watch you in the camera for the benefit of the audience, having never done this before. But I want to make it as interactive and as valuable for you so that you feel connected, because this is the purpose in it, that we are connecting. We came here together to connect, to truly connect, because to make the human connection. And I want to make the human connection with you. So thank you again for tuning in and giving us your time, because that's the most valuable thing you could ever give. I really appreciate you elaborating on that, and I'll focus my eyes on you and the camera, and that'll be more. That'll be more.
I gotta remember. I'll focus on that.
It's okay.
We're likely. By the way, I just want to say, Rick created this whole event simply by connecting with me and saying, "Hey, do you have time? Would you do this?" And boom, here we are. So this whole thing is being created because Rick has the personal empowerment, the courage, the ability, not because it's me, it could be anybody that he's interested in learning about, but created this whole experience just because he believed and had the intention and did it. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I believe we're co-creating. We are constantly co-creating. In fact, the vibration. If he hadn't held that same vibration, this wouldn't be happening. So that's my perspective, and I'm really interested in yours. You say in your book that everything is self-fulfilling. What do you mean by that? Everything is self-fulfilling.
Okay. So one of the great examples that I often use in speeches or talks is how the seed, scientists have taken the seeds of grapefruit trees or apple trees or any other plant, and they've torn it apart. And they can't really find anything in the material. They don't know what it is. It's just material. But somehow when the right conditions get around it, it becomes what it is. Its I am is the seed. I am the grapefruit tree. And when it gets water and sunlight and fertile soil and the right temperature, it germinates. So it's the same thing for us, except that our self-fulfilling nature is through the thoughts that we hold about who we are. Now, there's a certain amount of genetics that have been passed from generation to generation that give us eye color and hair color and certain predispositions to taste, sound, sights, what's attractive to us, what's not attractive to us, and even the way we respond to our environment has been given to us by our genetics and then by our nurturing. But when we come to a certain age where we realize that we have control over this, then we begin the self-awareness process, and we can plant new seeds, new truths in our mind that then begin to work through our thoughts and actions that become self-fulfilling. So, for example, people that you know in your life that are focused on fear, you could have two people walking down the street. If one's focused on fear and one's focused on faith, they're going to have two different experiences walking down the same street. One person's going to walk down the street, people are going to be bumping into them, noises are going to bother them, a cat's going to come up and scratch them. You know, just all this stuff's going to happen because the fear that they have is attracting that into their life. Where same person walking next to them, the sun's shining on them, people are saying hello, a dog comes up and licks their hand, you know, good things are happening. And I've seen this over and over and over. So everything is self-fulfilling based on its I am, what its idea is, its truth. Not what you think you believe about yourself, but what the real true nature is of what you believe, which is always demonstrated in your circumstance up to this moment. But here's the beautiful thing. This moment holds infinite possibility to define, declare, and demonstrate new I ams, to be able to look at the old ones and to say, do those old thoughts, the way I've been looking at the world, the way I've been feeding my mind and my whole experience and what I've been creating because of that, A, is it true? And B, more importantly, does it serve what I'm trying to create for myself right now? So that's what I mean by self-fulfilling.
I get that. And I just want so bad to look you in the eye.
Sorry.
No,
I keep turning. It's just a natural thing because you're sitting next to me.
Right?
Look over here.
It's okay. It's good. I totally feel you on this because the statements that I've made in my life, so the experiences that I've had when in those moments where I made a declaration, I am this, I can remember one time when I was younger, before I ever even, early in my real estate career when I wanted to be a developer, and we were at a party or at a function or something at one point, and somebody asked me, what do you do? And of course I was a real estate broker, but I said, I'm a developer. And my wife looked at me and she said, you're not a developer, you've never shoveled any dirt yet. I said, no, but I've seen it, I'm doing it, this is where I'm at, I am a real estate developer. And sure enough, it wasn't very long before I was, involved in transactions and becoming that, So the I am statements, the truly belief, holding that belief, if you believe you're right, you're right. If you believe you're wrong, you're wrong. It's almost that simple. And then the thoughts creating the reality. Is that what you mean by
Well,
self-fulfilling prophecy? Like
so
if I...
you can say all day long, I am, I'm able to fly.
Okay.
But until you learn how to use a wingsuit, which is the closest thing we have to that right now in current pop culture and modern day, I'm not talking about airplanes. I'm saying personally, the closest thing we have is those new wingsuits that people are using. But until you learn how to do that, you can't really say that. You have to, in other words, or you can say, I am a loving person. And you can keep that thought in your mind and you can believe that about yourself. But ultimately, that truth is going to seek its validation. So you have to demonstrate through your actions the truth of those I am statements. And so a lot of people where the disconnect can happen is when I've been saying all these things about myself, but have you been following through on the thoughts and actions that actually validate that truth? Because life can only respond to what you believe is true through your feelings, thoughts, and actions.
So what I hear you saying, let's take this a little deeper. You're talking about an underlying belief, a subconscious, unconscious programming.
Conscious or unconscious.
Or unconscious.
Most of our I ams have been unconscious through genetics, nurturing, and personal experience until we get on this path. That's what really taking conscious control is about. That's what waking up is about. It's realizing the programming that you've had, meaning just your thoughts and beliefs about yourself and how they've had an effect on your life, and taking conscious control of saying, you know what? My mother or my father said this horrible thing to me when I was a kid, and it's had a horrible effect on me, or my last husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or boss said this to me, and it's torn me apart and made me feel terrible for so long that I finally realized that's not true anymore. And actually, it's never been true. It's just a truth I took on and lived out, and it's caused a lot of suffering and a lot of strife. But you know what? That doesn't serve me anymore. I now realize the truth about myself. And the truth about ourself, that's really what I am is dedicated to. The whole book is infinite possibility. And the more you can do to see the beauty and perfection of who you really are, which is the real truth, there is no imperfection in you.
Did you just tell me I'm perfect?
Just like everybody else. So
does wait a minute, does that mean you're perfect?
Perfect unto ourselves, meaning perfect with the consciousness, the thoughts, the feelings, the actions, what we've known to be true, how we've acted, and how we've responded has been perfect to each person and their journey of understanding. If we could have done better, we would have.
How does that serve you, though? When you say, "Oh, I should have, could have, or would have done," how does that serve the highest ideal of you in the moment, in the present moment?
Well, if you live in woulda, coulda, shoulda, you're living in denial, because woulda, coulda, shoulda is denial.
Denial of what?
Denial of what the truth really is. Because if you would have, could have, should have, you would have. So
okay.
So the truth is,
that's denial.
That's denial, right?
Okay, I get it. Because if you would have, you would have.
Right.
And if you could have, or if you should have done that, you should have done.
Right.
But that's denial because you
because
really
it leads
couldn't.
to regret, and it leads to guilt, and it leads to shame, and it leads to regret, and those are all poisons of the mind. Because if you live in that space, in this moment, those become your I ams. I am regretful. I am shameful. I am guilty, and then those I ams are the seeds of what you have to live out. So you have to create another experience to allow yourself to feel that. Your identity, who you are, I, seeks its experience as am. I must become am. Thought must become matter. Mind must become matter. Thought must become reality. So your thoughts are... So that's why guilt, shame, and regret are poisons. Now, that doesn't mean you don't take responsibility, and it doesn't mean you condone anything negative that you did before. What you want to take out of it is the learning. Because if you can take the learning, then you can take this into this new person, this new idea, saying, okay, I know that's who I was, but it's not who I am anymore. And I'm going to choose to embrace a new idea. And immediately, a new energy and a new vibrational pattern comes out of you. A new energy comes out of you. And the cool thing is it not only affects your thoughts and actions and what you do in the world, but the real magic is that life has this intelligence that it knows what that vibration is, and it starts to feed you back a different reality, one that matches the new, expanded, more loving, more compassionate self. That's why the true path to healing is self-awareness.
Oh, now we touch on healing. I love this. I love talking about healing because I really don't believe that we need to be sick. And maybe we're talking emotional healing, or maybe we're talking, physical ailments, disease. And I've kind of looked. I paid attention to guys like Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza. These guys they're on the quantum edge, and I really want to say that you are on the edge. I mean, you're on the edge. Your I am statement just spoke so much truth to me. I see the divinity in you, and when we were talking about perfection, what I really wanted to say is, I see God in you. Yeah, I see the divine in you, and that's what I'm looking for anyway. And so as I go looking, as I go seeking, what is it I'm seeking? Because your statement of it being, and I just say verbatim, self-fulfilling, right? That everything is self-fulfilling prophecy. And if whatever it is I'm seeking in you or from you, I'm going to find. Now, it may be a distortion, right? There may be a distortion in my own mind.
You're going to do your best job to shape the reality that you experience to match your truth, because we're trying to validate what we believe is true until that truth no longer serves us. So that's why two people can be looking at, for example, you take a simple example of a dog. If one person was attacked by a dog, a rabid dog, when they were 5 years old, this puppy could come running up to you when you're 15, and one person sees a happy puppy running, ready to lick your face and just, snuggle with you, and the other person is in absolute terror because their truth is, that's going to hurt me. That's going to threaten my survival. And so now you can see where the heart of racism really comes from. It's that next leap, whatever they've been told, whatever their genetics have been encoded with, it's the same thing. But the truth is, like people, all dogs are different, and most of them are extremely loving. It's the same thing with people. 99.9999999% of all people have a loving, kind, giving heart. I don't care if they're blue, purple, red, green, whatever. It doesn't matter. We're human beings. We're all the same. And so we all have the same energy. It's just when you have a belief that tells you something, it immediately begins to create fear, and fear creates a reaction that isn't there, and that's where things go sideways. So.
There's really two options, fear or love.
Yeah.
Now, I've used the word love interchange.
Well, two experiences.
Okay, two experiences.
We don't know their options until we do.
Okay, I think that's fair. Yeah. Two experiences. You can experience life through a lens of love,
right?
Or you can experience life through a lens of fear. And the options are going to be what was the word you used?
Until we
infinite possibilities.
Oh. Well, the options are infinite. Yeah, right. But it depends on what serves you. And growing up, we don't know that we have control over that experience until we get on this path right here, right now that you're experiencing. You brought it into your life. Now you know you have the option. So this waking up or this higher level of conscious awareness, then you start to take a different journey in life. You begin to see where the real control is over not only how you experience life, but the energy that you put back to it. And then you start to have conscious control over what you want to create. Now you understand why some people go flying through life and create all this great goodness in their life, and other people have paths that are a lot of struggle.
So, my journey, I've come to accept that I am 100% responsible for my reality.
Okay.
And this has been, it's been a bit of a struggle, right? To own everything in my life, to own all of my stuff, good, bad, ugly, The reality is, but now at this point in my life, I I take 100% responsibility for everything that I'm observing, everything that's going on, based on my own vibration. What do you think about 100% responsibility and ownership of one's life? What are your thoughts around
Well, I
that?
think that's the key to self-mastery. As long as it doesn't come with any guilt, shame, or regret, or any comparison where if it doesn't happen for you that day, or if you slip a little bit in that responsibility, that you don't let your ego use it against you. Because the ego can come in like a thief in the night to try and pull you back to the old self that it was comfortable with in the middle of that transition to the new self. And so, no, I think it's great. Take 100% responsibility. But again, there's a difference between taking 100% responsibility and then feeling guilty about the fact that things aren't where you want them. You have to accept the process for what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, someone said we're here to learn, which is exactly right. It's exactly right. That's the process.
Well, what are we here to learn then?
We're here to learn the truth of who we really are, which is infinite. I mean, these are big answers. I'm throwing these answers out, but I don't want to be so trite in that's a big mouthful I just said. We're here to learn the infinite possibility of who we are. Like, that's like, okay, wow. But that is really what we're doing here, is continuing this. And that's why we're all the eternal observers. Like, without you, life doesn't exist. So you don't really have to worry about your existence. Will there be transformation and change? Yes. But your existence is never in doubt.
Yeah, we're energy. Energy never dies. It just changes form.
Exactly.
So that's the whole thing about death and reality. It's like, but I'm infinite.
The energy you call it your consciousness, your awareness, the energy that fills your body, and anybody who has seen a body that's passed on, the driver has left the vehicle. It is so obvious. It's just a faint shell of, that energy has moved on. But it still exists. And that doesn't mean that, this gets into maybe a little bit of a weirder area, but can you see a radio wave? Can you see, when you're talking to someone on the phone, can you see the conversation move through the air? All these billions of conversations. Can you see a text message move through the air? Well, then what's to say that energy still isn't here? It's just that we haven't developed the faculty to see it yet or experience it yet. So always keep your mind open to that possibility. And there may be a time when that faculty develops and we're able to see what has always been here. And that includes wisdom, or that includes other people's energy, or what people call spirits, but that's also a distinct possibility. You can't discount it, is what I'm saying. So
in writing this book, and this is what's fascinating to me, because your background is obviously, if you read the book and you read Howard had this awakening without ever having, sought it. Like, just living a normal, everyday life, and yet it just... So many people, and I'm just coming from circles that I'm observing, right? This is just my truth, my observation, what my experience has been, that there are lots of people that are out there right now, they're searching for this awakening. They're hungry. They want to be connected. They want to know what truth really is. And they're like, man, show me the way. And I keep saying, look, it's all inside of you. It's not out there somewhere. There's no guru that's going to give it to you. It's all inside of you. And yet from my perspective, and it's like everybody that shows up in my field, almost in essence is what is a reflection of me in the moment of where I am. And that's out there. But
yeah, well, a couple things I want to say about that.
Sure.
First of all, I did seek it. It just wasn't. I didn't know what the word enlightenment meant. I had no idea, which I think was in my favor, because then I didn't have a preconceived expectation.
Oh, you asked the question.
But I was seeking wisdom since I was 14 and looked up at the stars.
Right.
So I was always seeking bigger answers to questions. It's not this. If you look for the experience, it's not the experience that you want to be looking for, or it's it's the answers to the questions. Be asking the right questions. What do I want to know? What do I want to understand about life? And then be mindful enough to be present to see how life, maybe even in this very moment, is bringing you part of that, and just using guys named Rick and Howard as a vestibule to get it to you. So that wisdom is always around you. And then as it relates to the idea that it's always in you, yes, the will to receive and open to the wisdom that's already here is in you. When you're ready, then the, quote, gurus show up. But what I mean by that is, the guru could be a movie that you've seen 20 times, and then you finally see the spiritual subtext in the film because it's related to the exact journey that you're going through. You know, this happened to me on several movies after this experience. Vanilla Sky was one of them. Black Swan, unbelievable film, was another one. But the point is, so the guru in that moment was the director of that movie. Sometimes it's a teacher or a book, but life uses everything at its disposal to feed you wisdom when you're ready for it. And sometimes it trickles in like a little drinking fountain. And when you're really ready and you're really open and you're saying, bring it, then it's like a fire hose. You just have to be ready because it's a lot to take in. So.
Get ready to be ready.
Yeah.
Get ready to be ready. Okay.
Get ready, yeah.
Yeah, and like for me, it's like pushing it out to the edge. It's like I get to that place where it's fear, where I'm almost paralyzed to just take the next step, and then, but once I jump, then I'm clear. Then I'm good. I'm like, oh, thank God. But the edge is really agonizing at times until I take that leap, and that's where the suffering is. It's like, okay,
that's fear.
That's fear. That's fear or love the experience. Now, you said something about asking the right questions and then not really seeking the experience, and I've said something for myself, and this is just I ask myself this question: what is it I want to experience? What big?
Okay, so can I clarify the...
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the late 60s, in the counterculture movement, there was a generation that was seeking answers. And they found, through psychedelics, a shortcut to the grand answer of oneness, right? Because psychedelics cut right through the ego. It takes away the whole way the brain perceives energy and turns it into matter, and it just turns it into energy and waves and oneness. And they came off the drug, and they're like, the world is effed. Like, Vietnam and Nixon, are you kidding me? You gotta be crazy. Like, I just discovered love and oneness, and that's all I care about. And Woodstock, Haight-Ashbury, the whole counterculture movement was about this incredible discovery. The problem is that they didn't have the fundamental conscious understanding to know how to integrate it with life. So when you combine that experience of that understanding with the conscious awareness that life is where it is because it's supposed to be here, because this is where we're at on our journey individually and collectively, it makes it easy to harmonize. In today's world, ayahuasca has replaced what was used, acid
LSD,
or LSD,
yeah.
Thank you. LSD or acid in the 60s, it's been replaced by ayahuasca trips. People going on these retreats and doing ayahuasca, but it's the same thing. They get a great experience, but they come off of it, they got to go back to dealing with bills and jobs and the reality that's before them. My thought is, gain the conscious understanding that builds the framework that not only gives you the understanding of oneness, but then allows you to come back and move through the world with that peace.
That's been a hard part for me. Now, I haven't had the experience of, I did mushrooms when I was a kid, as a teenager, but I was scared to death of doing acid because I'd seen a guy just flip out and lose his mind. And I've talked to a lot of people that are on that ayahuasca journey, and they're, they're absolutely in love. I mean, they're living in a place of acceptance and of love, and they're enjoying their journey. So
awesome.
So no judgment on my part. Yet there was this, this fear of like, man, dude, I don't really want to be out of control anymore. I mean, having gone through addiction, having damn near done with all that is, that there is this deep connection with everything and everyone,
right.
That there's nothing separate, that it is the the judgment that creates the illusion of separation.
Right, but it's not just the judgment that creates. This is where words get interesting. It's not an illusion of separation. That's what reality is. Reality is separation. Reality is creative expression. So, yeah, while there is some things you don't want to happen, you don't want people to hurt other people, but people sharing different races, different religions, different ways of life, different foods, different art, everything that people experience is an expression of the separation of reality that gives us contrast, depth, gives us the color palette.
Okay.
So, but understanding that, and going back to the ayahuasca thing, it's good if it gives you the glimpse and you're living that happy life. It's just when you need that in order to be in that state, that's when it can tip to sort of a little bit more of a dangerous, addictive type of way. When you can get the understanding, come back and then work to build a framework that supports it so that it's not needed to get to that understanding or place, then you're more liberated, you're more free, because you don't have to use an outside source, like you don't have to use LSD. Not that you can't, but it's just, it was more empowering control over yourself. So does that make sense as far as the idea of, because this word illusion of separation is used so much, but what is reality but separation, the contrast, the color palette, the distinguishing things that make us all different and allow us to each understand our individual creativity and at the same time understand our connection and our oneness beneath it.
Yeah, I get the contrast, I get the separation. When I'm looking at another human being in judgment and saying, that's not me. Okay, this is just my personal experience.
Yeah.
I have a difficult time accepting that person. I'm not in acceptance. If I'm looking out and I'm saying, and I'm in judgment, because my underlying belief is everybody's doing the best that they can.
Yes,
at the moment in time.
totally agree. I think the way you're doing it is perfect.
Right.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Right. I agree. In fact, I think we're all trying to say the same thing at the same time and want to be understood. And that's part of what we're yearning and searching for, is that deep connection and understanding. That's why we're here. It's like, did you really hear me? Do you really feel me? Do you understand where I'm from, this place that I'm coming? Mm-hmm. Because I'm really truly yearning for that connection, to know that even though there's this oneness, I don't really want to be alone. I want to be on this journey with others and have a reflection. And so if we get back to that place of the I am and the oneness, and why are we here? Why was this in the first place?
Yeah, but the cool thing is you never really are alone.
No.
Because the universe is always here supporting you.
I'm frozen. Is it still frozen? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know that we're still feeding. Hopefully. Thanks, Kathy, we got some bunch of comments here, but been really tuned into this conversation. Okay, we got some thumbs up. Thank you.
Okay, so we are still going. Okay.
Yeah, we're still live.
So
Good.
Just to comment on that, I think I understand exactly what you're saying, is that if you don't see the connection, the crack of judgment can come in. But what can help with that is to be able to see that everybody is doing the best they can on their journey, and they have to deal with their dharma, their karma, their lessons, their learning. So you don't have to hold any judgment of them, because the universe has it.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Okay. So a lot of what we're talking about for me, having done some training in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and coming back to this place of the unconscious mind and the beliefs and the underlying beliefs, whether they're conscious or unconscious, and rewriting that programming to have a different story, to create a different story about the I am, and what you talk about in your book, the contrast between the fear and the love is that story. Because depending on which lens you're looking through, you're going to get a different view.
depending on one of the thousands of beliefs that you hold
Yeah.
that are seeking its validation, it's going to, if one needs fear to validate something on one of those beliefs, it will pull it in. That's why becoming the witness to yourself and becoming conscious of when you're reacting emotionally or when you're feeling fear, and just having enough mindfulness and enough awareness to stop and question, where is this emotion coming from? Where is this energy coming from? Where is this fear coming from? Is enough to interrupt the process. Because then you can find out, if you dig deep enough, you can find the sponsoring thought, and that's transformation. Because then you can hold the thought up and go, I've had this how long in my life about this? Like, get away. I don't want that thought anymore. I'm going over to this thought, and then you put energy into this thought. And when you're conscious of that long enough, you don't have to be conscious anymore, because it immediately flips the genetic switch and goes into the subconscious. And then you're transformed.
Until the pain of remaining the same is
Yeah.
greater than the fear of change, will remain the same. Yet, what I hear you saying is, if you're curious enough, if you stay curious and you ask yourself these underlying questions, you might not have to be in suffering.
Curious is one way. I
Okay.
think it's more if you have a strong enough will. Now, what fuels the will
Okay.
is a sense of self-worth and value to become that experience. So finding any thoughts that keep you from full self-love liberates you to infinite possibilities that you believe are now possible for you, liberates you to the love, and fires the will up in an unstoppable way.
Okay, now I hear you saying it's the heart space, the heart center, rather than the head. And this is just, I'm taking what you're saying to mean for me.
But you're accurate, because the head has been in front of our heart for so long. Because of, again, genetics, the nurturing of the best people could do with us growing up, based on the best they could do with themselves, and then the layering of personal experience that you have to go through, because the ego is the guardian. And so once you defeat the ego, you open the heart. And what I mean by defeat, let me just clarify. When you stop allowing the ego to be your master and you master your own ego.
Right, because without the ego, we wouldn't experience physical reality.
Yeah, it's the bridge, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
bridge, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just mastering that ego and recognizing when the ego is speaking and when.
Well, recognizing what it's trying to serve, which
Sure.
truth it's trying to serve for us, because it doesn't do anything without our truth driving it. So it doesn't have its own entity. It's not its own self. It's just a reaction to our truth. So it helps us. That's why I love looking at the ego as an ally, because it is trying to help you validate your truth. And if it's really negative, the ego is going to do a lot of negative things, meaning negative choices, decisions, people in your lives, in order to create that. But once you realize the instructions you've been giving the ego, then you're like, now I know where that's coming from, because I was told this, or I believe this. Now I know that's not true. I know who I am now. Therefore, I got a new set of instructions. And the ego will waffle back and forth a little bit, because you're moving into unknown territory and the edge. Right?
Yeah.
But eventually it'll submit to the new belief when the will is strong enough.
Well,
this is power packed, by the way.
What's that? It's powerful.
This whole hour's been like power packed. I mean, there's a lot of
This is where I like to go, man. This is the good stuff. You get into the meat where it changes lives, right? I mean, so here's something that you can do. You can do, like, your book is enough, right? You are enough. You're more than enough, right? As in each and every one of you are more than enough. And that I am, when you know who you really are, you're sovereign. You're truly sovereign. You are loved beyond your wildest imagination. The entire universe is conspiring to bless you and those you dearly love.
Exactly.
Everything is acting out for you and not against you. And when you know that and you believe that,
that's really good.
And you can get into your heart center. What I want to know is, how do you get into your heart center, and how do you stay and maintain this course? Because what you're doing now is you're speaking about this. You've written this book. It's life-changing, and it's speaking to people and you're speaking to people in the business acumen, right? In the sports industry and just everyday life, and I believe it's making a difference. So how do you drop in? Yeah, how do you drop and get into your heart center?
So the answer to that question is that I am in the heart center. Therefore, there's no place to get into.
Oh.
Now, that doesn't mean there aren't moments, candidly, moments, very, very brief ones, where old triggers can briefly move me out of the heart center, but the awareness of that is so fast and so rapid that I can move back.
Okay.
You know, or I have people around me immediately, you know, that built that system, you know.
Of awareness.
Yeah, and just to reflect back to me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that.
But in the bigger answer to that.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge.
I don't want to answer that. Yeah.
Do you understand how deep that is to be at a constant state in your heart center, coming from a place of love and compassion, mercy and grace, to seeing wholeness and wellness in others continuously, not stepping out? That's amazing to me. I don't want to negate that for myself. I don't want to say that I can't do that, because I know I can, and I will. And
I am.
And
I am right in this moment.
I am in
and
this
everybody
moment.
watching is in this moment.
This is powerful, right? Because I am coming from my heart space.
Right.
I am coming from my core to bring this to you, to be here with you in love, in compassion.
But you asked a critical question that I want to make. Could be the most powerful thing on the whole talk. I mean, there's been a lot of powerful stuff, but you asked me how I personally stay in this space.
Yes.
Being in this space was a result of the self-awareness that allowed me to see the truth of who I really am. That's why my whole life is dedicated, and in the first line in the book, it said, when this occurred to me, I said, why me? And then the second thought was, why not me? And then the third and probably most powerful thought to the reader is, why not you? And so that's the whole idea, is that going through that process allows every human being to step into more of that heart space, because they see more of the truth of who they really are beyond the limitations, fears, and misunderstandings of the truth of the self and infinite possibility.
So unplug from the matrix, get into the heart center, dive right into the heart, get out of your head, but utilize it all the best to serve.
To serve your creative experience, humanity, and experience more of the love that is everywhere. Yeah, that's the whole enchilada right there. That's it. Well, that's the big burrito, right? You know, that's it.
Love you, brother.
Oh, same here. Same here. It's my honor to do this with you. It's been awesome.
I got one more question for you.
Sure.
And then we'll wrap it up, and thank you guys again for tuning in. But let's just see how I worded it. Oh, yeah. So what is your vision of the world to come? What's next? What is your vision of the world to come?
That's a big question that I probably need to narrow down the essence of that, because I could take that in a lot of different ways. My personal vision, obviously, I can give you the
sure.
The
You
main line.
can share it however you want.
Okay, so my personal vision is a world in which more people, through the process and the education of self-awareness, self-empowerment, self-understanding, self-love, self-respect, come to a greater understanding of who they are, which expands their heart, their creativity, their love. They go in and they do things from more of a we-based centered mindset than from an I-based centered mindset, because an I-based centered mindset, I believe, has led to a lot of the suffering of the world and inequity. That doesn't mean that the structures come down like capitalism or what. The structures remain, but they evolve, they change to a more of a we-based structure. So my vision is that the world comes to more of that place where they see the humanity and the the oneness that we all are beyond skin color, religion. Like John Lennon says, what if there was no religion?
Yeah.
No. I mean, that's the whole point of that, is that if we saw the truth of each other. So that is my, you call it kumbaya, but that's my vision for the world. And on a more practical matter, my vision is that the world and the educational system will open up to this work as development and to be studied as much in middle school, high school, or in college as math, science, reading, writing, any of the other subjects, as a part of how we learn about who we are. And I think that's the next evolution for mankind, or humankind. That's the next evolution for humankind, is a conscious evolution.
So if we can hold that collective thought, right, and that idea that this kind of teaching can go mainstream.
Yes, that's the vision.
Collectively,
yes,
that's the vision.
That's the vision.
And we teach people that what they think and how they feel creates their reality. Their
Right.
I am statements are really what shapes their world.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. That is the heart of it right there. That is the vision. Because I think that's the way forward, and I think that's going to answer a whole generation that's questioning their world right now and everything that's going on, and having such conflict with the old way and this new generation. I see a lot of young people that see this new heart-based way and meaningful way and conscious way, whether it's the environment, whether it's politics, whether it's a business. That's the emergence that we're at, the edge that we're on right now.
Well, I will hold that vision with you, and I would encourage you collectively to hold that same vision. Hold true to your vision for you, and see the world as you want to see it. But if we can see the world empowered, if we can see this next generation coming up to where they can have much more coherence, awareness, peace of mind, we're really creating a compelling future. And so, Howard, I love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you too, man.
And thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah,
And
thank you. We'll repost.
Aloha.
Peace.